I wasn't expecting much from the summer, just a break from the noise of campus life. When Tyler invited me to crash at his place while I sorted out my off-campus housing, I figured it would be a couple weeks of microwave dinners and late-night gaming marathons. What I didn't expect was how quickly I started noticing the small things. The clean smell of the house, the way everything had its place, and most of all his dad. Mr. Carter. The first time I met him, I was 15. Back then he was just Tyler's dad, a tall, quiet guy with sleeves rolled to his elbows, calloused hands, and a firm handshake that made you stand straighter without knowing why. Now, at 43, he looked the same, maybe even better. A little more gray at the temples, maybe, but it worked on him. Like a man who aged into his own strength. "Glad you're staying with us, Nate," he'd said when I arrived, taking my duffel bag like it weighed nothing. "You know where the guest room is? Bathrooms down the hall use, the towels in the closet, not the ones with the red stitching. Those are for show." Tyler always forgets. He smiled slightly when he said that, just enough for it to count. Tyler was out before I could even unpack. He had plans with some girl he was dating again, or maybe a new one. I didn't keep track anymore. So that first night, I sat awkwardly in the living room while Mr. Carter watched an old western, black and white, slow-moving. "Quiet. You can change the channel," he said without looking at me. Double quotes. "No, this is good." I didn't mean to stay long, but the room felt warm, like something pressed pause on the world outside. He poured us each a glass of iced. No words, just passed it over. I don't think we spoke more than 5 full sentences that night, but it didn't feel weird. It felt ... still. Over the next few days, a rhythm set in. Tyler was hardly ever homework. His girlfriend, the gym, so it was just me and Mr. Carter most of the time. I'd wake up to the sound of him moving around in the kitchen, humming under his breath as he fried eggs or rinsed coffee mugs. I tried to stay out of the way, but he always had an extra plate set out. "You're too quiet for a college kid," he teased once. I shrugged. "Guess I always have been. Doesn't mean that's a bad thing." He had this way of talking that made even simple words feel like they landed somewhere deeper than they should. I started joining him for late dinners, 2 usually leftovers or something quick, but he'd sit across from me, sometimes reading the paper, sometimes just sipping from a chipped mug with a small smile like he knew something I didn't. Night I came out of the shower to find him in the hallway, barefoot, holding a laundry basket. He looked up, nodded at me in my damp t-shirt, then nodded again, this time toward the guest room. "Left the fan on for you. It gets stuffy in there at night." "Thanks," I said, heat blooming in my chest. I wasn't sure why. It wasn't anything, just small things, little moments. The way he'd hold the door a second longer than he needed to. How his hand would brush against mine when passing the remote. The smell of pine soap on his skin. After his shower, none of it meant anything, at least, that's what I told myself. Until I started looking forward to them. Until the silence between us didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like a room filling up with something unspoken, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave. It started in the kitchen. The mornings were always quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the faint sound of birds outside. Tyler had started spending most nights at his girlfriend's place, which meant I was usually the only one up with Mr. Carter. I didn't mind it. He made the coffee strong and poured it without asking. I liked the way he moved in the kitchen, efficient, unhurried, like he knew where everything belonged. I reached for the coffee mugs one morning, standing on my toes to grab the one with the faded Cubs logo. Mr. Carter was behind me, rinsing a pan. I didn't even hear him step closer. Then I felt his hand brushing along my side, fingertips grazing just under the hem of my t-shirt as he reached past me to grab something off the shelf. It wasn't a full touch, just a brush. Barely there, but it lingered. "Sorry," he said quietly. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you." "It's okay," I mumbled, heart ticking faster than it should have. I turned around, and he was already halfway across the kitchen, setting down the sugar jar like nothing had happened. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. That afternoon, I was wiping down the patio table when he stepped outside with a fresh bottle of lemonade. I didn't hear him come up behind me again. It was like he moved with purpose and silence at the same time. His hand landed lightly on my shoulder. "You've got good posture," he said. "Your back's always straight. Most guys your age walk around like they're carrying the weight of the internet." I laughed awkwardly, unsure what to say. His hand stayed on my shoulder a moment longer than necessary another time. While fixing the sprinkler system, he turned to me and said, "You've got quiet eyes." I blinked. "What does that mean?" He looked at me for a second, like he wasn't sure he should answer. Then he smiled, soft and lopsided. "Means you see more than you let on." I felt that smile in my chest long after he'd gone back to tinkering with the hose. That weekend, they threw a small barbecue. Just a few neighbors, Tyler's girlfriend, and some family friends. I stayed by the grill, trying not to look awkward. Mr. Carter moved through the crowd like he belonged in every corner. Strong, silent, people listened when he spoke. At one point he stepped up beside me, his fingers brushing the back of my neck as he reached out to adjust the collar of my shirt. "It was crooked," he said casually, but when I looked up at him, his eyes weren't casual, they were focused. I laughed it off. So did he. But I felt heat rise up the back of my neck. Later that night, as I was rinsing off the barbecue tongs in the kitchen, I caught my reflection in the darkened window. My own face. Unreadable. I didn't recognize it. Something inside me was shifting like I'd crossed into a room I didn't remember walking into. I kept trying to convince myself these were just small things. That the way he stood close to me when we talked was just habit. That the way he watched me when I read on the porch swing was just curiosity. That the way he always found an excuse to touch my shoulder or adjust something on my clothes was just fatherly. But I wasn't a kid, and he wasn't acting like I was. He'd laugh at something I said and then glance away too fast. He'd reach out to pass me something and let his fingers brush mine even when he didn't have to. Each moment alone with him felt like it carried a breath. We both refused to exhale. I told myself I was imagining things, but even imagination needs material, and Mr. Carter kept giving me more than I knew what to do with. I started waking up earlier, not because I wanted to but because I needed distance. If I got downstairs by 6:30, I could pour a quick cup of coffee and escape out back before Mr. Carter even stirred. I'd sit on the porch steps with my hoodie zipped up, pretending I was watching the sunrise, when really I was just trying to calm the way my chest clenched every time I thought about him. Avoiding someone in the same house is harder than you'd think. Every floorboard creak sounded like him. His voice drifted from the hallway when he answered work calls. I caught whiffs of his cologne before I even saw him, pine, and something faintly like tobacco. The scent stayed in the guest bathroom long. After he used it like it was chasing me, I skipped meals, said I already ate, claimed I had to meet someone. Even when I did in single quotes T. Carter didn't push. Not exactly, but the way his eyes followed me felt heavier. One night I went to load the dishwasher and found him already standing at the sink, sleeves rolled up, washing plates. You don't have to do that, I said quietly. He shrugged. It helps me think. I picked up a towel and started drying. Silence wrapped around us like steam from the hot water. The clink of glass, the scrape of a plate. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "You okay, Nate?" I almost dropped the mug. I was holding, yeah, fine, just tired. He looked at me for a second, really looked, then nodded like he didn't quite believe me but was willing to pretend. I wanted to say something, I didn't know what. That your touch keeps echoing in my chest. That every time I see your hands I remember the moment they brushed my side. That I don't know what I'm doing, only that I keep thinking about you. Instead, I wiped my hands on the towel and walked out before I said something I couldn't take back. Later that week, I called my cousin Anna. She was the only person I ever talked to about anything personal. I told her I was crashing with a friend's family for a bit, helping out around the house, trying to stay busy. She laughed. That's very domestic of you. Any cute guys around? I hesitated. No, not really. Not even a hot older neighbor. Come on, you've got a thing for silver foxes. You told me that once. I lied. I told her there was no one, that it was just me and my best friend's dad, and he barely talked to me that night. I dreamt about Carter's hands, not in a graphic way. It was simple. Quiet, he was fixing my shirt collar again, except this time his thumb brushed my neck and didn't leave. He leaned in and said something I couldn't hear, but I remember waking up with my heart pounding, the ghost of his touch still clinging to my skin. I sat up in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd let this happen. I wasn't even sure what had happened. No lines had been crossed, nothing had been said, but it was there in the glances, in the silences, in the way his fingers always seemed to find me like they belonged. I thought about moving out, going back to campus early, but the thought made my stomach twist, because I didn't want to leave. Not really. I wanted to stay, and I hated that. The next morning I came down a little later. Carter was already at the table reading the paper, mug in hand. He looked up when I entered, eyes lingering like he was relieved to see me. I poured my coffee, sat across from him, said nothing. We just existed in that space for a while. No touches, no words. But the tension in the air was soft, almost warm, and for the first time, I wondered if he was just as lost as I was. The storm came in slow, clouds rolled over the hills by late afternoon, and by evening, thunder was rattling the windows. Tyler had left that morning for a weekend trip with his girlfriend, so it was just me and Mr. Carter in the house. I almost welcomed the weather. It gave me an excuse to stay in, to let the world shrink to the size of this quiet home without needing to explain why I hadn't left. When the power finally cut out around 7, the house went still in that way. Only power outages make possible. No fridge hum, no lights, just the soft ticking of rain. Mr. Carter appeared in the doorway of the living room with a flashlight. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Kind of peaceful, actually." He raised a candle in one hand and a folded blanket in the other. Figured we'd just wait it out. Be cold. Little bit. He tossed me the blanket, and I caught it awkwardly, nearly dropping my phone in the process. Our hands brushed, again, but this time it wasn't rushed. His fingers slid along mine for a second too long before he pulled back and walked to the cabinet. He lit 2 candles, placed one on the coffee table and the other by the record player in the corner. I didn't know he had vinyls. He put one on without saying anything, and soft jazz spilled into the room, a slow, smoky trumpet drifting over the crackle of the record. "This okay?" he asked, settling onto the couch across from me. "Yeah," I murmured. "It's nice." We sat like that for a while, just the two of us, candles flickering, rain tapping the windows. I didn't realize I was watching him until he turned and caught me. He didn't look away. His eyes stayed on mine, steady and unreadable. I used to hate the rain, he said suddenly, but now I think I prefer it. I tilted my head. Why? He leaned back, one arm stretched across the couch, the other resting near his knee. It makes the house feel full, like it's holding something instead of echoing. He looked down then, fiddling with the seam of his jeans. After the divorce, it got quiet. Too quiet. Tyler was away at school, and I'd come home to silence. Every night it's different when you're alone by choice. But when it's single quotes on you, it starts to feel like punishment. I didn't know what to say to that. I wasn't expecting him to open up. Not like that. I'm sorry, I said, voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged. Don't be. Just telling the truth. He shifted slightly, and his knee brushed mine. The contact sent a ripple through me, sharp, electric, and confusing. I stared at the candle between us, unsure what to do with the way my heart kept rising into my throat. I used to think I needed to fill the silence, he said, quieter now. Music, TV, anything. But lately, it doesn't feel so empty. My fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. I knew what he meant. I knew the air between us felt thick, like it had weight, like it had shape. I looked at him then. Really? Looked. There was something soft in his face. Not weakness, just truth. Vulnerability, maybe. The kind of thing you only let someone see when you're tired of pretending you don't feel. And I couldn't help it. I leaned forward. Just slightly. Not a full motion, more like a question made with my body. And in the flickering candlelight, I saw the answer in his eyes. His hand moved slow, careful, and rested on top of mine. Our fingers didn't interlock, they just touched, still warm. Steady. My breath caught in my chest. A flash of lightning lit up the room. He didn't flinch, neither did I. But just when I thought the space between us might disappear entirely, when I felt myself leaning in that impossible inch closer, he pulled his hand back, cleared his throat, stood up slowly. I should, check the breakers, he said, voice low and even. I nodded, eyes cast down. Okay, but I didn't move. I stayed on that couch, wrapped in the scent of rain and old records, listening to the echo of what almost happened, and trying not to wonder why it hadn't. The silence the next morning felt different, not comfortable like before. It was stretched too tight, like a guitar string tuned one note too high, waiting to snap. I couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. My heart still echoed the moment on the couch, the feel of his hand over mine, the way his eyes had nearly met mine before he walked away. I packed my bag before noon. Tyler wasn't due back until Sunday evening, but I didn't think I could make it that long. My thoughts were too loud. My skin still burned from a touch that never turned into anything. I didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye. I just wanted to disappear without needing to explain why. I was running away, but the garage door creaked open as I stepped toward my car, and there he was, Mr. Carter, wearing the same faded black t-shirt from the night before, his hair still damp from a shower, a towel looped around his neck. You leaving? He asked, voice careful. I froze, my duffel hanging from one shoulder. Yeah, I think it's time. He nodded once, stepping inside and letting the door close behind him. Dust floated in the light cutting through the high window. The air smelled like wood and motor oil. You don't have to go, Nate. I do? I said, eyes on the ground. This place is getting too complicated. He took another step closer. Is it because of last night? I didn't answer, but I didn't look away either. He stopped a few feet in front of me. His voice softened. Was it something I did? Something I said? I shook my head. No, it's not that. Then what? I swallowed hard. My chest felt too tight to breathe. It's me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what any of this means. He was quiet for a moment, eyes searching mine. Then he said it low, deliberate. I haven't stopped thinking about you. I blinked. Since last summer, he continued, voice a notch above a whisper. When you stayed here after finals, you were sitting on the porch one night reading, and I remember thinking, God, he doesn't even know. Know what? You look when you're not trying to impress anyone. Like you belong. I didn't speak. Couldn't he stepped back slightly, like the weight of his words had embarrassed him? I probably shouldn't have said that. I just don't walk away, I said suddenly, my voice cracking mid-sentence. He paused. I reached out instinctively, grabbing his wrist fingers closing around the same arm that had once brushed mine in the hallway, the same hand that had poured my coffee 100 quiet mornings in a row. He didn't pull away. He didn't move at all. The air between us changed, less like tension, more like gravity. Slowly, almost like asking permission. I stepped closer. Our chests didn't touch. Not yet. I looked up at him, and he looked right back. No hesitation this time. Just something raw and unguarded in his eyes, like he was waiting for me to say yes, so I didn't say anything. I just leaned in. Our lips met halfway. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, almost unsure, like we were both afraid of breaking whatever this fragile thing was between us. But it deepened slowly, the way truth does when it finally escapes a locked room. His hand found the side of my face, mine rested on his chest. Feeling the beat of his heart beneath my palm, the tools on the shelves around us stayed still. The dust kept floating in the sunlight, and for the first time since I stepped into this house, the silence didn't feel like something I had to run from. It felt like home. Time slowed down after that. Tyler was still out of town, and the house felt like it belonged to just the two of us. Again, but this time, everything was different. Not louder, not bolder, just ... quieter, in a way that held weight. We didn't talk about what happened in the garage. We didn't have to. The air between us had changed, like a secret passed in silence. Like a new language built from glances and nearness. That first morning, I found him already in the kitchen, sleeves pushed up, cracking eggs into a skillet. He glanced at me once, eyes tired but softer somehow. "Coffee's fresh," he said. I nodded and grabbed a mug. We didn't speak more than a few words, but when I sat down across from him, his foot nudged mine beneath the table. Not accidentally. I didn't move away. After breakfast, we watched an old western on the small TV in the den. I barely followed the plot. My eyes kept drifting toward the steady curve of his jaw, the way his fingers curled around his mug, how the candlelight 2 nights ago had caught in his eyes. In the afternoon, we took a walk. Nothing planned, just started drifting down the trail behind the backyard, past the cedar trees. He carried a thermos of tea. I walked close enough that our arms brushed sometimes. Neither of us said much. I was learning the comfort of silence, and how it could hold more than any words could. That evening, I found myself in the corner of the living room, standing beside the upright piano no one had touched in years. It was a little out of tune, but the keys still worked. I sat down and started plunking a few chords, nothing fancy, just muscle memory from my mom's old lessons. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Then his voice, low and almost reverent. I forgot that thing even worked. I smiled without looking back. It still does. He moved beside me, not sitting, just standing close. Like he didn't want to interrupt whatever was happening. When I let the last note fade, I felt his hand come to rest gently on my shoulder. "You bring life into this house," he said quietly. My throat tightened. I kept my eyes on the keys. He didn't move his hand. Later, we sat on the couch, a blanket between us. The TV was on, but we weren't watching. The room felt full, like time had stopped trying to pull us forward. Eventually, I shifted and leaned into him. His arm came around me naturally, like it had always belonged there. I rested my head against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, strong. We didn't talk, didn't need to. His hand moved gently along my arm, not possessive, just present. I closed my eyes and breathed him in soap tea, and that warm cedar scent I'd memorized. Without trying, we stayed like that for what felt like forever. The house didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like it was listening, like it was holding space for something that hadn't existed here in years. And for the first time, I didn't think about what came next. I just let myself be held. The sound of Tyler's car in the driveway jolted me more than it should have. He slammed the door shut, laughing with someone over the phone. Keys jingled. The front door creaked open, and the house felt different, like it flinched, like a current shifted, pulling everything back to where it was before. I stayed upstairs longer than I had to. I didn't know what to do with my hands. My breath felt stuck in my throat. When I finally came down, Tyler was in the kitchen raiding the fridge, tossing a water bottle toward me. "Man, Dad didn't starve you, did he?" he joked. "He probably babied you the whole time." I laughed too loud. "Yeah, something like that." Carter stood at the counter, quietly drying a mug. He didn't look up. I kept my eyes on the floor, but I could feel the space between us shift, grow, stretch, cool. That night, after Tyler went to bed with his door slammed shut and music playing too loud through the walls, there was a soft knock on mine. I opened it without thinking. Carter stood there in a navy t-shirt and sweatpants, his arms crossed, his eyes unreadable. "Can I come in for a second?" I nodded. He stepped in and closed the door behind him. Neither of us sat right away, but eventually we ended up on the edge of the bed, side by side, knees brushing. The contact burned, even through the cotton. We didn't face each other. He spoke first. "Whatever this was," he said slowly, "it mattered to me." I looked down at our feet. It mattered to me too. Silence settled again. Heavy, fragile. He nodded, like he was filing the moment away in some private corner of his mind. "But we can't." I started, then trailed off. He didn't finish the sentence for me. He just placed a hand gently over mine for a moment, then let go. We both knew what wasn't being said. The next few days felt like walking around inside a dream that was already fading. We barely crossed paths. When we did, the moments were short, a glance too long in the hallway, the smell of coffee in the kitchen, the sound of his boots by the door, familiar, but now loaded with everything that had passed between us. I started packing early. Tyler offered to help, but I said I had it covered. He didn't push. The morning I left was cool for late summer. Gray sky, air full of quiet. Carter was already outside when I came down with my last bag. He helped me load the trunk without saying much. The silence was comfortable but different from before, like a book that had ended, but the characters still lingered somewhere off the page. I closed the trunk. He stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, while I said, forcing a smile, "Thanks again for everything." He nodded. Anytime, Nate. I turned toward the driver's side door, already feeling the ache of leaving. Then he stepped forward. Wait, he said, pulling something from his back pocket, a folded piece of paper. He didn't hand it to me, just slipped it into the pocket of my hoodie. You don't have to read it now. I swallowed hard and nodded. Take care of yourself, he added, voice low. You too, I whispered. I didn't hug him. I don't think I could have handled that. Instead, I climbed in and started the engine. As I pulled out of the driveway, I checked the rearview mirror once he was still standing there, arms folded across his chest, watching me go. I didn't look again. I waited until I reached the rest stop 2 hours away before I pulled over. The car smelled like stale gum and coffee. The trees outside rustled in the wind. I sat there for a long minute, then finally reached into my hoodie pocket. The note was folded twice. The handwriting was simple. Neat, heavy pressure. You were the only part of this house that ever felt real. See, I read it twice, then again, and again. I didn't cry. Not exactly, but something in me loosened. I leaned back in the seat and stared at the ceiling, the note resting over my chest, and I smiled not because I knew what came next, but because something had happened, something true, and whatever the future held distance, time, silence it wouldn't erase what that summer gave me. A connection that caught me off guard, a quiet kind of love that lived in spaces between words, and the memory of a man who looked at me like I was worth something, like I brought life into his house, and maybe I thought into him too.